Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what do everybody? It's your boy John Altidor with Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Back at you with another one with my boys Vlad, Barry, and today we got a guy that covers the Patriots and sports betting for CLNS Media, also the host of Patriots Beats on Patriots CLNS. You see him on YouTube all the time if you follow the Patriots, of course. You guys been doing your pre-draft stuff. Without further ado, Mike Kadlick, thanks for coming on the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. We've had a pretty chaotic Monday so far with various Boston sports news. So excited to join you guys. We'll wrap it up for a while. It should be fun. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And I'm thinking you're talking about the fact that Mac Jones will be the fourth best QB in the AFC. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets. Some interesting, an interesting tidbit in the trade too that kind of is, I feel like nobody's really talking about yet, is that the Packers jumped the Patriots in the draft order for Thursday. So whether it's a wide receiver that they may be targeting or maybe an offensive lineman, something of that nature, but now the Packers are going to have the go of it over the Patriots. So that's interesting. Yeah, you're right too. As far as quarterbacks in the division, Josh Allen, Tua. I would still take Mac over Tua. I think I would. But Aaron Rodgers, I would take Rodgers over. So maybe Mac's 3. But we'll see. This is a big season for Mac, obviously. I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But yeah, major news, major shakeup in the AFC East.
Yeah, and they did it right before the draft, which is coming up on Thursday. So we're officially in draft week, man. And it seems like it takes forever the draft week to come and then turn around, boom.
I know.
It's coming up. And like I was saying earlier, you've been doing a lot of work on the Patriots draft. And obviously we're here to talk about the Patriots, man. You just mentioned that the Packers moved up on the draft board. I think the Jets got the number 15 pick. So we're right in the middle of those two teams making picks. What are your thoughts on this upcoming draft and the type of players that you see the Patriots bringing in for workouts?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one, an interesting offseason really as a whole that's gone on for the Patriots over the last several months, right? They get rid of Matt Patricia, they bring in Bill O'Brien. They're doing this whole offensive revamp, trying to make the most really of Mac Jones is what it comes down to. There's reports about maybe them shopping him, and it's come out that they've done work on Will Levis, the rookie quarterback, and they met with Anthony Richardson, but I don't see them going quarterback here. I think it's Mac Jones' team. What they need to do now is just continue to build around him. As far as the draft in the first round, I think and I've talked about it, like you said, on our show several times. I've, wrote and tweet about it, whatever. There's really 3 holes on this team right now. I think it's cornerback, I think it's tackle, and I think it's wide receiver. I think they have to address one of those 3 in the first round. If they decide to go with there's talks of Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. I don't think they have the luxury to make that pick, right? That you have Ramondre, and you really can't, you don't have enough elsewhere to just be like, oh, let's bring in another running back, right? You need to protect Mac. You need to give him a weapon, or you need to really shore up that defensive backfield. So I think it's got to be one of those 3 positions on Thursday is really what they have to focus on.
I mean, if you were, in that draft room, what would you want to go with, as your first pick?
I go back and forth, and I'll probably do it 10 more times now up until Thursday, but I go back and forth between wide receiver and corner. I think that the Patriots believe they're okay at tackle. So I'll trust them on that, and I don't think they necessarily need to go tackle this early. Barry, I see you might not agree about the tackle, huh?
Yeah, no, not so much. I'm like, did we see the way our tackles played last year? We definitely need some more tackles.
Now I agree
on that roster and to protect Mac Jones, because those tackles last year were atrocious, abysmal, like the worst in the NFL. Like it was a joke on how
they had Matt Patricia coaching, right? So
that's my thing, right? Right, John. So like the tackles weren't great, and they also kept getting hurt, right? So like Isaiah Wynn would go down, and then Trent Brown would be out, and then they were shuffling the guards around, and at times James Ferentz was trying to play tackle, and they signed a guy in Marcus Cannon who was just was on the brink of retirement, and then they signed who was the practice squad guy, Connor McDermott. So like they were constantly shuffling guys in and out, in and out. Meanwhile, Matt Patricia is trying to call the offense as well as the offensive line. The whole thing was a mess. So yes, they were bad, but you can almost throw it out. And so what they've done now, and I think this is where their heads are at tackle, is their starting line is going to be Trent Brown, Cole Strange, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, and then Riley Reef, who they signed in free agency. If you can coach that up, Adrian Clem comes in, Bill O'Brien's here, coach that up. That's 5 decent tackles, or excuse me, 5 decent offensive linemen that you can work with. Then you add depth with Calvin Anderson, who they signed. They re-signed Connor McDermott. Like they have depth there where maybe they can make it work. So I don't think you need to necessarily go with them in the first round. Second round, third round, sure. You need more at tackle. I just don't think you need to spend 14 on it. That's why I sort of go more towards cornerback and wide receiver. If you let me ramble on for another second, as far as protecting Mac Jones, they need to protect Mac, but you can protect Mac Jones with more than offensive linemen. You can protect him with a solid wide receiver. If you can get the ball out to a guy in space really quick, like, quick game type of stuff, that protects you just as much as an offensive lineman. Sometimes you can run a pass game out of the screen game, or a run game, out of the screen game, and, really make the most of it. If you have guys that can get open quick and, run this system that Bill O'Brien came here to do. So I would go wide receiver or corner with the first pick that's my long-winded answer there.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like, this year, the wide receiver crop they have is pretty deep. I'd like to see, a number one option, coming to the screen. But, I've learned pretty quickly, the things you want are probably not going to come here.
Right.
When it comes to the pick, I don't think anybody's ever predicted who we're going to pick in the first round.
Right.
Has anybody? Cole Strange was like,
I was going to say Cole Strange was just last year was like, I almost fell out of my chair, right?
Same here, me too.
It reminded me of Kendrick Bourne, his party. Him and Mac Jones were there, and they picked Cole Strange. He's like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah. Forgot about that. Yeah.
Had me dying, man.
Yeah. And nothing, and I'll say too about that, like quickly, nothing against Cole Strange. Like he's a pretty good player, but the way they did it and the as early as they took him still doesn't make sense. You probably could have got him in the second round. Instead, they traded back, and it was like, okay, maybe they picked something, and then it's like, oh, they picked up a guard here, and it didn't make sense. The value there just didn't make sense. Look, maybe us in the media and us as fans were a bit lower on Strange than the NFL, crop and GMs, but still pick 29 felt way, way, way too high for him last year. And like you said, the video of Kendrick and Mac was hilarious too.
What about the video of the Rams coach? Yeah.
Yeah, UT Chattanooga, and he like was yeah. Well, that's an interesting point too, right? It's like maybe I look at that 2 ways. It's either A, they're like, holy shit, why did they take him so high? But also the Rams were probably like, oh wow, maybe they wanted to try and grab him in the second round and beat other teams to it, but they couldn't because the Patriots beat them way too early. Again, that's probably a more optimistic way of looking at it, but yeah, that McVay video was funny as hell too.
You know, you pick these guys in the draft, and I think this year the Patriots definitely have to pick some guys that can come in and start from day one. At least get in there. A few games into the season. But to make that work, you need the right coaches around. Relaying the message and helping these guys develop. And with that said, right, we've had a lot of changes on the Patriots this offseason. What do you think of the offseason changes that we've made? And, do you think that this team is going in the right direction?
I do. I think that they have improved. I think when you look, anytime you're going to get rid of Matt Patricia as the offensive coordinator and bring in Bill O'Brien, you've drastically improved. So that was a huge step at the beginning, sort of whatever meeting Belichick and Kraft may have had. Clearly it worked to an extent, right? Because they bring in a guy who they give him the offensive coordinator title. They get rid of Belichick's buddy and Matt Patricia, and, they move forward. So huge step there. As far as moves in the offseason, obviously we still have the draft to come up, so I don't think they're done. Maybe they have another draft day trade up their sleeve with, people keep bringing up the name Jerry Jeudy in Denver, right? I don't know anything necessarily in that regard, but the draft is always a time where guys like that can get moved. I mean, we just saw it with Aaron Rodgers, right? So maybe they're not done with current guys, but Juju Smith-Schuster coming in, Mike Gesicki coming in, and Jacoby going out, and Jonnu Smith going out. I think that's a win. Look, I like Jacoby Myers just as much as the next guy. He was a solid player. He had a rapport with Mac Jones. Undrafted guy who came in, worked really hard, and obviously, made himself a shitload of money now in Oakland or Vegas, right? But I still think Juju Smith is better than Jacoby. I think he's faster. I think he's a better route runner. Jacoby's really good, but maybe I go back and forth on the route running, I suppose, but I just think that Juju's ceiling is much higher than Jacoby. And so you're paying them roughly the same amount of money. I think that's an upgrade at wide receiver. And then Gesicki over Jonnu Smith. Just to get Jonnu Smith's contract out of here on that trade was a huge win. And then you bring in a guy in Gesicki who objectively a better player, more of a receiver than a tight end, really. He's not going to really help you in your blocking scheme, and neither is Hunter Henry, frankly. So they still need to work, make something happen at tight end, whatever that may be. But you also re-signed Jalen Mills, you re-signed John Jones, Jabril Peppers too. So the defense is going to be okay. They brought all their guys back pretty much. And I think they improved on offense. Right direction. They still could have done more, made a bigger splash. I still think there might be room for it this weekend, though.
Well, the draft is a time where there's a lot of trades, and what do you think is going to happen with Lamar Jackson?
It's kind of a boring answer, but ultimately I think he goes back to Baltimore. I think they're somehow going to make it work. I think Odell Beckham going there. I don't think he would have went there if he didn't at least have a thought that Lamar would maybe go back. Look, because they'd have no quarterbacks, and Odell is in really the back end of his career. Maybe Baltimore was just the place where he got the most money, but I think there might have been, some sort of handshake agreement behind the scenes that, look, I'm going to do my best to get back there from Lamar's perspective. Who knows though? He could get traded on draft night, right? You never really know. Maybe Baltimore, who could, maybe Indianapolis goes and gets Lamar on draft day, and they trade the number 4 pick for Lamar, and then then Baltimore brings in a rookie to work with Odell that way. But I don't know. I think he just ends up back in Baltimore. That's my boring take. But what do you guys think? I guess I'll throw it back to you. Patriots wise, would you have wanted them to bring in Lamar Jackson?
Well, that's what I thought you were gonna say, but you said nothing like that. So.
Yeah, I don't. I'm very much Team Mac Jones. I think that he really got screwed last year.
That was gonna be my next question, actually. What's your confidence in Mac Jones, and how does the Patriots help him get better this year?
I'll fold it into Lamar there, right? because I kind of just said that I'm Team Mac and I wouldn't have done it. But realistically and objectively, Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback than Mac Jones. There's no denying that. So when he was out there, when he was on the trade market, the Patriots probably should have made the call. It doesn't sound like they did. It sounds like they kind of let it go. The price was steep, the 2 first-round picks, you have to pay him. But objectively speaking, Lamar Jackson's better than Mac Jones, and it's rare that a top 5 quarterback is just out on the trade market. So it seemed a little irresponsible, in my opinion, for them not to make the call. Having said that, I'm okay with them not, because I think Mac Jones got completely screwed last season. I think he showed promises his rookie year. Is he going to be a top 5 quarterback ever? Probably not. Does he have fringe top 10 traits with the right, with the right system around him, with the right players around him? Yeah, I think he can, get to that level. I think he's an accurate passer. I think he's smart. I think you guys don't agree.
I'm looking at Barry's face. I'm like,
Barry doesn't like it. All right, hey, that's fine. I think with the system, with the system Bill O'Brien wants to build here, a quarterback who can be smart with the football, a quarterback who can get the ball out on time, make the right decisions, know how to read the defense. That's all things that Mac Jones did outstandingly in college at Alabama, and also showed during his rookie year. Last season was an embarrassment. It was the worst coaching decision Bill Belichick has ever made. And it really, really screwed up Mac Jones's second season. So maybe too much. Maybe it's really bad and it really screwed him up and he'll never get back to where he was. But I think he at least deserves another chance this year with a better, cast around him.
I'm a Mac Jones guy too. So there's 2 of us.
All right.
Barry,
what don't you like about him?
Honestly, I think he's mid.
Right.
I don't want to. You can call me a hater or not, or whatever. But I just don't see, like, when I watch him play and I watch his game, I don't see a guy that you can be able to really, you can be able to really not only compete but win when you're playing really good teams and really good defenses. When you play, or even other good quarterbacks. I don't know if he's a guy that you can be able to, have confidence in and trust that he can be able to, hold his own against, really good defenses or against really good quarterbacks and offenses that can score. And in this day and age in the NFL, particularly with the AFC East division getting stronger with Aaron Rodgers and just the AFC as a whole, as a conference, with all the, really good quarterbacks that there are in the conference, you need a guy that's going to be that can really sling it and that can really, move the ball down the field and put points up on the board and be, a really prolific quarterback. And I just don't think that Mac Jones is that guy. I don't think he's that dude. I don't see anything in his game that makes him great, or you can point to and think like, yeah, he's really great at that, or he can, do really great at that. Like, he's good at certain things, and in certain parts of his game, but I really don't think if you really want to compete with these teams, in our division and the conference, and we have an awfully tough schedule this year, and I'm looking at some of the teams that we're going to play this year, and I'm just really wondering how we're going to beat these teams. I know, we're going to do our best to, to be competitive and to, play hard and compete and, really, put up a fight in a game against them. But I just don't think we have enough on this team to really say that we can even be in the hunt and compete for a wild card spot. Just because it's just the gap between the teams that are good and us is much, I hate to say it, pretty big. And it's just really depressing to see that we're that far still from. But I don't
think we are that far, Barry. I really don't think we are. I mean, they were 1 win away from making the postseason last year. If they won in Buffalo in Week 18, they were the 7th seed. They went 8-9.
They weren't winning that game. I hear what you, we knew they were.
Not necessarily. They were in it for a little while. They got there. And look, I understand your points, right? Especially on Mac Jones. I just think the jury's not out on him yet, right? Is he a great quarterback? No. Has he proven anything? No, he hasn't. But he's also definitely not like terrible. And there's a chance.
He's not a bottom tier quarterback, and that's why I said average, like
right.
in the middle tier, not
Fair.
bottom, not top. He's like right in the middle. You can't really contend and compete. You know, if you have a middle of the pack quarterback, you're really kind of just stuck.
And but if you were the middle, if you were a quarterback,
7, 10, 8, and 9, like that's what it really feels like to me. To be honest, I'm just keeping it real.
If you were a middle of the pack quarterback, though, with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge calling your plays, and a offensive line with with guys constantly injured and practice squad guys playing, and wide receivers that frankly aren't good enough to Jacoby Myers is not a number one. Jonnu Smith was a disaster at tight end. Let's call it. I liked Jonnu, but he was disaster. So now they're making improvements. He can be better than mid. I think you're going to see this year that he can be better than mid. My point is he deserves an opportunity for one more chance.
That's
if
fair.
It's the same thing as last year. See you later.
Get him out of here.
Next one up. Right. But
if it's the same thing as last year,
I think being a top 15 pick with what he did in college and what he showed in his rookie season, I think he deserves one more shot at it. That's
and I'm willing to give him that. Right.
Sure.
But that direct after what happened last year, like you went over, with the disaster, from the coaching staff and just overall with the team in general. Like you're right. You should at least get one more year, but they should have also been more aggressive and look to upgrade if they couldn't. I feel like they weren't aggressive enough and didn't upgrade enough, not only at quarterback, but other positions on this roster, especially knowing that the competition has gotten better. So like you gotta, keep up and make sure you're putting the best team and the best roster out there to be able to put yourself in the best position to be able to make the playoffs so you're not playing a win and in game on week 18.
Right.
And it just doesn't seem to me that they really did enough to, to better their situation, even though they did make some improvements, but, it's not quite enough, and it's not, quite the, what they needed to be able to really, say, okay, to make the fans and make us feel, more confident and have more faith and belief that, they're at least a playoff team right now. They're at least a top 7 team right now in the AFC and should be able to at least get a wild-card spot and play in a postseason game, because I really can't say that as of right now as we speak.
I mean, like Mike was saying, man, the coaching, I mean, when your team doesn't even know like your offensive sets going into the season, it's probably not going to be a great season on offense. Mm-hmm. When guys are speaking out like ever before, like there's stuff that were happening last year. I'm like, I don't even recognize this team because
this is not the Patriots.
Right. So dysfunctional.
Right. I mean, I think you could have called the offense last year, Barry. I mean,
get him a headset.
On this podcast,
seriously, I mean, I think any of us here could have called those plays that Matt Patricia was
for real.
And we're all sitting on our couches watching it. So, if we can figure it out, I think, other competent NFL teams would figure out the Patriots and still a game out of the playoffs. So, I mean, personally,
it's really too bad how that happened. I want to turn the page so bad because it's like we have the draft coming up. And to your point, Barry, there's a chance they bring in a playmaker on day one, a Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, continue to improve the offense. But like I said, turn the page. But, I keep looking back on it and it's like, I feel bad for Matt Patricia too, because he was really put in a bad spot. Like, why? What was Bill Belichick thinking?
It's not like he can say no.
I'll never. Again, I said it earlier today. It's like it was the worst decision he's ever made, and I can't even begin to think of why that was his idea. or to think that was going to work. It'll never make sense to me.
Well, just imagine if they had made the playoffs and he would have still be the offensive coordinator that this year.
Right. I know. Well, that's a good point too. It's like, they were that close with the shit show that it was last year.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you guys care if I swear on the show?
No, you're good. You're
All
good.
right, yeah, okay.
Nah.
Yeah,
All
so
good.
like,
Nah. Talk your shit. You're good.
yeah. Well, so again, it's like they were that close with the absolute shit show it was.
Mhm.
A couple improvements, better offensive coordinator. Yes, the division got better with Rodgers, and Trevor Lawrence is here in the AFC and things of that nature. But they made improvements. They'll compete. And again, this weekend coming up, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they can bring in maybe 4 or 5 more impact players. Who knows, right? Maybe they make a trade. Maybe they get a guy in the first round. We'll see. But they're not done yet. I don't think they're done yet. I think there's a chance that they'll be able to at least compete in the AFC this year.
Now, question: does this Aaron Rodgers trade put pressure on the Patriots to make a move and do something big in the draft to really keep up with the rest of the division?
I mean, it's kind of it has to, right? You would think. I mean, with what happened again, I keep going back to last season, but with what happened with Belichick and this, this whole team, Belichick doesn't really have the luxury anymore of thinking 3 or 4 years out. He has to win now. You don't know what they're going to do if he doesn't win now. And so now you have Aaron Rodgers, who, say what you will about Aaron Rodgers, is a pretty damn good quarterback. The Jets have really solid players on offense. Think about, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and, they traded Eli Moore, but they brought in Alan Lazard from the Packers too. You add Aaron Rodgers to that, their defense is solid, a good coach in Saleh. So like that team's going to compete right away at the top of the AFC East. I'm still, like I said earlier about Tua, I'm not sold yet on Miami, but even if you're the third best team in your division, then you're still clawing your way to a playoff spot. And so, yeah, you do have to improve. And, whether that's maybe, look, instead of saying, oh, we'll draft a receiver, maybe we'll trade for Jerry Jeudy. Or if that's instead of drafting a corner, we'll maybe trade for a top corner. I don't know, but I think it at least should, kick them in the ass a little bit and be like, look, we need to make moves now. If I don't make the playoffs again, I'm as good as gone. So I think the Jets, here's my hot take. I think the Jets will win the AFC East. I think they're going to win the AFC East. I really do. I know it's one season. I know it's hard to make, get like a rapport down with the guy. But look, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be out for blood with what the Packers did. I like the Bills as far as a team, but I don't know. I just think that I really like the Jets this year. I think they have a real shot at winning the division.
If you think the Jets would win the AFC East, where does that put us? Because I was counting them as 2 wins on our record, because I'm like, who do we count as the 2 wins this year? I don't know.
There's no 2 wins this year.
Nah,
I know.
We're not beating the Jets. We're not beating the Bills. And maybe the Dolphins would split.
Have we beaten the Dolphins?
No, we might split.
Not lately.
But that's about it.
But we did last year, but they were injured, third-string quarterback.
We might go 1-5 this year in the division, or 2-4.
I think they can split with the Jets. I know. I go back and forth. I really do. Like, it's going to be it's probably the best division in football, just like it was the beginning of last year. I think you could say that again this year.
Who better than the NFC West?
It's tight because I'm a huge Justin Herbert fan. I think he's
that guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's him. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's him. If Mac Jones is mid, then Herbert's him. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, no. So I do.
We can agree on that, Mike.
And I wonder too. The Broncos bringing in Sean Payton now, and I think the Raiders were better at the end of last year too. So that's another good division as well. So, but no, I think I'm looking at the Patriots schedule now. You can beat Pittsburgh. You can beat the Giants. But again, you know what? Who knows, right? Because to Vlad's point, you can't really count on anything with the Patriots anymore. You can't pencil in 2 W's on the schedule anymore. It's just not how it works because they just They're not that team anymore. So can they compete? Yes, but you can't really, you can't count them out to lose any game.
My last
So
question.
that leads to my next question.
Yeah.
I know, obviously we still have to go through the draft and the schedule hasn't come out yet. That'll be coming out probably sometime later next month, right after the draft. Over or under 7 wins for the Patriots next year?
Over. I think they go over. Again, I look
where
back.
Are they gonna get it?
That's what I'm saying. Right. That's what I'm saying.
I just look at last season. They go 8-9 with, and it's to my point from before. They go 8-9, and it was an absolute disaster. They change out the coaches, they make improvements, they retain a lot of guys on their defense. So if you go 8-9 again, that goes over the win total, right? I think they can get to 10-7. I think that's probably their ceiling is 10-7. But I think they can get there. I look at you split with Do you split with Buffalo? Maybe Denver. Commanders you can beat. The Saints you can beat. The Colts you can beat. Chiefs, Jets, Dolphins. I'm just looking at their opponents now and kind of, I'm thinking on the fly here. They're not going to be the Chiefs. But
Oh, wait.
Yeah, we beat the Chiefs. No,
they're not going to be the Chiefs.
No, not happening. No. We're
but
not
Pittsburgh,
there.
Giants is a coin flip. Denver's a coin flip. There's a lot of coin flips. So their ceiling is probably 10-7. Their floor 7-10. I think they can get 7 wins. But if I had to guess, I'm going over 7.5.
What do you guys think? Over or under 7 wins, fellas, for next year?
I say over.
Vlad?
Is there money on this?
No, just what you think. Right. No money.
Just Barry's paycheck.
I'm not putting a bet on DraftKings or FanDuel or anything like that.
I say that we're at 7.
Wow, staying at 7. Vlad, you want to?
I'm actually gonna be that guy and say under.
So Barry, if they go under 7.5 wins, does Belichick get fired? Put you on the spot there. Yeah, I don't know.
Good question. I'm gonna come out and say yes.
You think the Crafts would fire Bill?
I think they have close, John. We're not far from it. We're not far from it. We're closer than you think. Bill's closer than
I feel like this is the
most
heard.
In the Patriots coach that you really think. Like Mike said, he can't really look, 3-4 years, down the line, moving forward. He has to be in win now mode. He has to look at the present and focus on right now, focus on this year. It's all about this year for him. This is a huge year for him and for this team. Like he can't think of even 2 years down the line. He's gotta really be locked in and focused on putting the best team he can possibly put together and making them as successful as they can be this season.
Vlad, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, so the draft is on Thursday. What do you think the night is gonna look like? Do we get a pick? Do they move down? Do they move up? Do they not even pick that day?
I think that pick 14 is too close to the front for them to not end up picking at all in the draft, if that makes sense. So even if they trade back, I still think it'll be within the first round. Okay. I don't think they'll trade all the way out. I just don't see them trading up. I don't think the board's going to fall in anywhere where they really will feel like they have to move up that much. Because a lot of the quarterbacks are going to go, and then you'll probably have your pick of the litter of an offensive tackle or a wide receiver or a corner.
How shocked would you be if they pick a quarterback?
You would be?
Yeah.
Like Anthony Richardson? I don't think they will. I would be floored if they picked a quarterback. There's no way. If a quarterback falls to them at 14, they will trade back.
Wow.
That's how I feel. I feel like if a quarterback or like Bijan Robinson, if they get to 14, they'll pick up the phone and let somebody else move up to the pick and get some value for it.
And
I think that's what's ultimately going to happen. I think someone's going to fall to 14 and the Patriots move back into like the 20s and pick up something else.
All right. My ultimate last question. I know I said the previous one was my last question. What does it take to get Bill fired, in your opinion?
Ooh,
It's a good question.
let's go.
Yeah. So like it from what I understand, there was a conversation that happened between Belichick and Kraft. Kraft gave sort of, this is what needs to happen, and Belichick complied to an extent, right? Brought in O'Brien, got rid of Patricia. Patricia's gone and filling out what have you. At the end of the day, he did what he was asked to do. And so if things don't go well and it's not necessarily Belichick's fault, then I think he sticks around. But if for some reason they go 6-11 and Mac's really bad and the defense is as undisciplined as they were last year and the special teams is as bad as they were last year, and they continue to struggle with playmaking abilities because they have no weapons, then I think there's a real chance that I don't think they'll ever outright fire Bill Belichick, but I think that there would be some sort of parting of ways, whether it's Belichick wants to move on and coach elsewhere, or Belichick retires, or something like that. I think there's a possibility that happens, and I think it would happen if they don't play well and it's clear that it was his fault. Otherwise, I still think he's probably here. I think if they go 6-11, I still think there would be a chance that Belichick is here one more year. I think he has too much, stake in the franchise. He's still the greatest coach of all time. And it's Bill Belichick. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Bill Belichick. So
You got to get to the most wins, right?
yeah, right.
Not let him do that.
Yeah,
sure.
I know. I don't know. But look, to get to the most wins, you got to be good. You have to win the games. And it sounds so obvious, right? But look, if you're not winning games, then you got to go, and you're not going to get to your record anyway because you guys stink. So,
Yeah.
Right. So if Belichick
Barry,
goes-
make that the last question.
all right, this is
Okay.
my last question. Absolute last question.
no
No
worries.
ifs, ands, or buts. So do they have the next coach on the roster ready to go? And who do you think that would be? I hope it's not Joe Judge if anything happens to Belichick and he goes. Is there anybody who you're confident in that can be able to be Belichick's successor?
I think it's Gerard Mayo. I think it's Gerard Mayo. I think Mayo had an opportunity this offseason to leave for a head coach job. He had interviews lined up. He had an interview with the Browns lined up for their defensive coordinator job, and he had an interview with the Panthers lined up for their head coaching job. He canceled both once they gave him the extension. That tells me that A, they're paying him a ton of money to stay, and B, he wants to be here long term to eventually be the next head coach of the New England Patriots. Robert Kraft alluded to him being the head coach in waiting. I think that was another one of Kraft's demands, if you will, of Belichick, was we need to keep Mayo and you can help him learn and ultimately be the guy behind you. He was involved in the offensive coordinator search. He was in those interviews with Bill O'Brien when he was here. And so I think they are setting themselves up to eventually hand it over to Mayo. And I like it. I think Mayo's a good leader of men. I think he obviously played in the league for, just under 10 years, I think. He understands how the league works. I think guys respect him. And I think he's a solid coach. I think he's probably a better leader than he is a coach, which makes him a perfect head coach because you're kind of the top dog facilitator. You tell everybody what to do, but you also let everybody else make decisions for you, right? And so I think Mayo's the next head coach. I'm
just going to disagree with that second part. I think he's actually an excellent coach. I think when he came to New England as the middle linebacker, he automatically got the green dot because he was just a very instinctively smart guy. So I think he's probably as good as of a defensive coach. Maybe not so much on the offensive side, but probably I think he's a very smart coach actually.
No, I agree. I think so too. I was more so just saying it because I think of him so highly as a great leader. So that's kind of what I meant there. Interesting part on that too that kind of came out from Mayo was that he basically said that Steve Belichick has been the one calling the defensive plays. not to take anything away from Mayo again, but it's interesting to think like, okay, so he's in there as a coach. He's not necessarily calling the plays, but clearly they think so highly of him. So he's doing something right to continue to stick around to be justified as a potential head coach in the league. And so I think he's well on his way. And I agree too, like you said about the green dot, and he understands the game. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think it should end up being him. And I think that's probably how it's going to end up going.
Yeah, for our sake, please.
Yeah, I hope so. Hopefully.
Yeah, seriously.
So we
Yeah.
need it.
Hopefully they listen to you and listen to this podcast, or listen or see one of your articles about that, or one of your podcasts. So hopefully they you can stick that in their ear, and that they can actually follow up with that.
Right. So Mike, right before you go, right? You're the GM. Who you picking first this year?
If he falls to them, Christian Gonzalez, the corner from Oregon.
All right. If we pick that guy, you got to come back on the show and talk to us about it.
All right, sounds good. Will do. He's a solid cornerback. I think that if he falls to 14, I think it would be a great pick. I don't know if he gets there. He's a fringe top 10 guy, but I think they need a corner, and I think you'd help. So
we'll see how that goes.
Yes, sir.
Mike, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And like I said, you're always welcome to come on here, man.
Hell yeah, you guys as well. This was fun. Thanks for having me. We'll talk soon. Go Pats.
Go Pats.
Absolutely. Go Pats. Yes, sir. Good to meet you, Mike. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Of course.
Yes, sir. And that was Mike Kadlick. Again, he covers the Patriots and sports betting for CLNS Media. He's also the host of Patriots Beats on Patriots CLNS. Just go on YouTube, man. You'll see him and Alex Barth actually do that thing together. So, Mike, thanks again for coming through. You can catch him at Mike Kadlick on Twitter. Make sure you're following us on all our platforms as well. We're at ProFan Sports on every platform except for Instagram, and that's at ProFans_sports. If you're still watching, thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribing. Hit that black button. It's the best way you can support us. So until next episode, man, we'll catch y'all later.
Peace out, everyone. Have a good week. See y'all next week. Thanks for watching.